Let me welcome you to Time-Saving Research Tips for the College of Education. Today's session will be recorded and made available on Forsyth Library's YouTube channel. You will receive a notice about this at a later time. I would ask that you please remain on mute during the session unless our presenter indicates otherwise. But please feel free to use the chat feature for any questions or comments that you may have, and we'll address them as we can. Just by being here today, you are now eligible for a prize drawing, so please stay with us until the very end where we will select a winner for today's session. Now, I would like to introduce today's guest speaker, Robin Hartman. Robin is the library liaison for all areas within the College of Education. And now I would like to turn it over to Robin to take over the session.
Like Brittany said, my name is Robin Hartman, and I'm the liaison to the entire College of Education. That includes the AEP programs and teacher education. And a little bit about me. I love being the education liaison because I have a background in education. I have my undergraduate degree in speech and theater education, and I taught for a while in high school before I moved to librarianship. And so I have that experience for teacher ed students and faculty. I have been in that seat and been doing that work. And also I've had the experience that many AEP students have with going back to school while having a full-time job and trying to fit all that in. So that's a little bit about me, but I really want to know about you. So we're going to put a link in our chat that if you go to that link, you should be able to participate in these next two parts of our session. So hopefully that will be there because I want to know about you. So the first question I have is what major or program are you in? If you're a student, I kind of focused on that, what you might be majoring in. If you're faculty, you can pick what your specialty is or whatever might fit for you. And if you're having trouble, feel free just to throw it in the chat. Got some people changing their minds. So it looks like we have a good mix of folks. Some teacher education, both elementary special education and secondary education, and some AEP folks, and but other that might be faculty since you teach a wide range of subjects. And I see in the chat we've got some criminal justice, counseling, higher education. So that's a really good mix, and that's a good example of all the types of students and faculty that I get to work with from across a big range of topics. So what I'm focusing on today, I'll try to pull things out, especially for things like special education or for those folks who are like specializing in reading or elementary education. But if it turns out you have questions, there'll definitely be time for that if you have a particular topic you want to focus in on. I left room for questions like that since there's such a wide range of information that we can find. And I'm going to jump to the next slide. So you told me a little bit about, your topic, but I also really want to know, how are you doing today? So There we go. So if you could tell me a little bit about how you're doing, all you're going to have to do is click on the dog that represents how you're doing today. We've got some happy dogs. We've got maybe a little worried dog, an anxious dog. Not sure what they're seeing dog. That's kind of typical today, but it gives me a chance to know where you're at. We don't have any too sad dogs or angry dogs, but that helps a lot. Get to the next slide. All right. There we go. So what I plan on covering in this session today, in the first part, is some tips on how to search, especially with using keywords when you're looking for information resources. Then I'll talk a bit about where to search, 2 highly recommended databases for education, and then just a few more tips, and then we'll have plenty of time for anyone to ask questions as we go. Okay, so first talking about how to search. So for this, I picked an example research question. How does the use of guided reading in the elementary classroom affect student reading abilities? So this might be the research question you're using for a presentation or a paper. And you might be really tempted to take this topic and just copy that whole question and put it in a search engine. And you might get some results, but then you might be kind of frustrated from the information that you get. And this is because this is kind of natural language. This is how we would ask this question. How does the use of guided reading? We would ask that way. But scholarly search and scholarly databases does not use natural language. They use keyword searching. So the first tip is to take your research question and break it into the main parts. So instead of typing in, how does the use of guided reading in the elementary classroom affect student reading abilities? My main topics in this question are guided reading, because that's what I want to know about, and elementary, because that tells me who I want to focus on. Not secondary, not higher education, elementary. So these are the main keywords that's going to start off my research. I might end up using other keywords or changing these keywords or adding to that, but these are the ones that I'm going to start with. So on our library homepage, we have this amazing box, a search box. It's called Search Everything. And it's pretty awesome because it searches nearly everything that we have. It'll do multiple databases and our books and our journals and DVDs and images and videos, all sorts of things. You're searching a large pool of many types of sources. And this could be good to start out with. So we could take this search box and just type in our subject. So if I type in guided reading, remember we're not putting the whole question, just guided reading, I find over 400,000 results. That's a lot of results. So we might feel like we're in this bookstore that I have a picture of. We know what we want is in there somewhere, but it's not really organized enough for us to walk right over to it and take it off the shelf. We've got things piled up everywhere. And when we use the Search Everything, we are finding newspaper articles and magazine articles and peer-reviewed journals and books and videos and dissertations and reference entries and images, all those things that are part of Search Everything. and that could be a little overwhelming. So what we can do is refine those results. So once you have those 400,000 results, I highly recommend that you try filtering them down. Now, I have a comparison on the screen. One is the library filter, and then another one is from an online shopping website. So this is very similar to what we're doing when we go shopping. So if I want a shirt for a child, I could go to a clothing website, doesn't matter which one, and say, I want a shirt, I want a children's shirt, and what I really want is a little kid's shirt, and I want it to be a hoodie. So I can click those buttons and get only little kid hoodies. The same thing applies to information resources. So on the library website, we could choose format, we could use type, location, the publication year, we can narrow down topics. Same thing like we do when we're shopping online, we can do that for information resources. So when I do that, if I searched, and I can even add to my search, is what I did for this. Because at first I only searched for guided reading, and now I decided I better put elementary in there. So I searched for guided reading and elementary. And I told the catalog that I wanted only things that had been published since 2000. I only wanted peer-reviewed journals that I could read right now in full text. I definitely wanted them to be articles and not maybe a book or an opinion. And I definitely wanted the topic that is focusing on elementary school students. So I told it those filters and said, go. And so instead of 400,000 results, I got a little under 3,000 results. So this feels a lot better than messy bookstore. We are perhaps in a bookstore where the books are shelved, but we have lots of them still to go through. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is how to get even more specific results. Because remember, if we're still searching everything, and when we have specific topics like elementary guided reading, we have some specific places we can look for those. So what we want to do, instead of messy bookstore or lots of shelves of books, we want to pick out these key books that we want. We want those really important books that we could just have our small pile to choose from. So if you search instead of our search everything, if you instead go to our research databases, we're automatically narrowing down that pool that we're searching from. And it's really easy to find our research databases. If you just look right under our search bar on our homepage, you can click that button. So we can do that. So instead of going to search everything, we're going to go to our research databases. So this is where I'm talking about where to search. I'm going to show you two specific databases that I suggest you search in. My first recommendation is to use our education-focused databases, our subject databases that are about education. So if we click Research Databases, it will take you to a big long list of all our databases. And there's a drop-down box that says Subjects. In that drop-down box, you just pick Education, and it will show you all the databases that have to do with education. And at the very top, we've put our best bets, the ones that are the most popular and the most useful about education. So you can start with those if you're not sure which one to choose. And the one that I have the big red arrow pointed to is Education Source. I highly recommend Education Source. Over and over, we find it's one that has a wide range of education information resources, because it's actually 3 databases put together in one, which means you have you've narrowed your pool down, but have a slightly bigger pool than just searching one database. And they have all sorts of information there, lots of journals, they have books, they have conference papers, and they cover the range from early childhood education all the way up to higher education topics. So one reason I really like using Education Source, other than it's 3-in-1, is that it will suggest keywords and phrases to you. So remember, we picked out our keyword, guided reading. If I type it into this database, it will start suggesting phrases to me. This is really handy if I'm not quite sure what phrase to use, or if I want to, remember some for later. So if I type in guided reading, it will actually pull things up like guided reading instruction in elementary, or guided reading kindergarten. If that has to do with your topic, you can click on that and be even more specific. So when I put in guided reading into Education Source, I get 556 results. That's a lot more manageable than 3,000 results or 400,000 results. And what's awesome about this database is, just like our catalog, just like online shopping, we can filter this too. So when I do that, and I told it about the same things that I told it for our library catalog, I actually was able to refine this down to 70 results. Now, you might be thinking, that's still a lot. Do I have to read 70 papers? And no, you don't have to read 70 papers. But what you can do is look at 70 titles and see if it's something that you want to read. So it's saving you time in you're not going through hundreds and hundreds of articles trying to figure out what it is you need. You have 70 things to skim the titles, and then maybe you might open 10 of them to go to the next step to see what it is you want. And like we have our picture, this helps us find the key resources that we need. So we don't have a huge bookshelf of things to look through, and we don't have a huge bookstore worth of things to look through. We just have our pile to have to look through. Saves you a lot of time. Okay, so that was Education Source, which I love to use. But I saw several of you are from AEP, which means you're probably going for a master's program or another type of higher program, and that some of you are also focused on higher education. When you have this type of information, this next type will often help you. So in our research databases, instead of looking at a certain subject, we're going to look at a certain type. So it's this drop-down box like right next to subjects as types. And for this, I'm going to suggest thesis and dissertations. Don't be intimidated. If you're a student, because I know there's some students in here who are saying, what? You want me to read a dissertation? Because dissertations can be like 200 pages long. Don't be intimidated by them. If you see a dissertation that looks interesting to you, you don't have to start at the beginning and read it all the way through to the end like it's your favorite novel. You don't have to do that. What's really great, especially about dissertations, is usually there's a table of contents and they've listed out exactly the types of things they talk about in there. So you can look at that table of contents and go, well, I want to see what they talk about first before I read this whole thing. So you can jump to the discussion or even the conclusion and see what it is they say about the topic before you maybe might go back and look at some other parts. So don't be intimidated. You don't have to read it in the order that it was written. And if you want more information about that, we have other tutorials that explain all the parts of dissertations, theses, and other scholarly papers. So hopefully that doesn't scare you. The one that I recommend the most is ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global. And it actually covers topics all over the place, art and business and science, but also education. So if I were to use this dissertation database and type in guided reading, I find 500,000 results. I find a lot of results. But remember, this covers all sorts of subjects. So again, we're going to refine and filter this down to the topic that we need. So remember, we're looking for that key stack of information. So by refining it down for things that have been only published since 2000, and they had some great topics in here like reading instruction and reading achievement, and I think that will go really well with that research question I'm trying to find out about. So I can click through, and I actually got this down to 148 results. That 148, still a lot, but much better than 500,000 results. And here you can see some of the results on here, and they are pretty helpful. They will highlight like your key terms, so you can see where they talk about elementary schools or they talk about guided reading. You can see how that works. So I feel like I went through that pretty quickly, but my main tips for this is look at our education databases because they specifically pull from education journals. Look at our dissertation and theses because when someone is writing a dissertation or a thesis for their master, they are zoning in on a very specific topic, and if your topic is there, you're going to get a lot of good information there. And I have a few other tips. So earlier, moving your lovely faces out of my way so I can see what I'm saying. Earlier I was talking about pick the keywords. Remember, we had our big research question about how effective guided reading is in elementary school. And we pulled out just certain keywords for there to use our searches. When you do that, write that down somewhere. Keep a keyword list, and you don't have to write it down. You don't have to handwrite it. You can keep a Google Doc. You can keep it in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever works for you. But just take that moment to write down the things that you've tried. Because you don't usually do all your research all at the same time. You do some like today, and then you'll come back from it 2 days from now, and then maybe you don't get to it till next week. If you write down what you've tried, it helps you know what to do next and not keep repeating the same things over and over and not realize it until you're already in the middle of the search. So you can keep a little list of keywords, things you've tried. If you type into, like we typed into education source and it gave us lots of different things that we saw, you can just write down some of those down to try later. Sometimes there are variations on terms. We kept saying elementary students, but a variation on that might be primary school instead of elementary school. So you might want to try that term later on. Just write that down or paste it into your Google Doc. You also keep track of things that don't work so that you don't keep trying it later because you forgot that you've already tried it. Related to that is to keep a search log. Again, you don't have to handwrite it. You can just copy and paste the things that you do into some other doc. But keep a list of the databases you try. Remember that, oh, I saw, when I was looking at the education databases, I jumped into education source, but I saw listed there this thing called ERIC. And if you want to remember to try it again later, just so you can write ERIC down on your list. You can also write down things that work really well. So if you do try ERIC and it turns out primary school found you lots of results, if you write that down, you'll know the next time if you want to go back into ERIC to use primary school instead of elementary school. And also combinations that don't work. Sometimes you put in some words and you get 0 results. And that's okay. If you write that down, then you'll remember that and try again with something else later. So this is what I was saying, try different combinations. If you start out with our search everything and you have way more results than you want, that means maybe you need to try a more specific database. If you start out in Education Source or in our dissertations or one of our other subject databases and you're getting only like 1 or 2 results or no results, that's okay. That tells you need to broaden your search out and try a more general one. And you might actually have to go back and forth and try a different combination. That's okay. There are many ways to get to the information that you need, and you don't have to feel like you're doing it perfectly. Even as me, as a librarian, and I've been specializing in finding education information as a librarian for 5 years here, and I've been a librarian for 10 years, you think I would know everything there is to be known about searching. And I don't. I will do a search, and it's always when someone is watching or I'm recording it on video. I will do a search and I think is great, and I will get 0 results. And that's okay. This is not something that you need to be perfect at as soon as you start typing into the computer. This is something that you will learn from and that you'll find the best way to do something. Or you'll find that this path works well today, but then when you change it, you have to use a slightly different path. It is like, you know, taking a walk somewhere that you haven't really been before. Think about in the before times when you went on vacation and you knew that you wanted to go to downtown somewhere, and you kind of knew you wanted to go to a restaurant and a museum, and you're walking downtown and it turns out the museum you wanted to go to was closed. You probably didn't freak out. You probably just looked around and said, well, there's a really interesting, you know, exhibit over there. I'm going to walk across the street and go there instead. That's kind of like what searching is. You're just going to see what's available. Sometimes you have to back up and go the other direction, and then sometimes you find things you didn't even expect were there but turned out to be awesome. So don't be discouraged. Try different combinations and you will get there, I promise. So the big thing is, if you're struggling with this, is to ask a librarian. I am your education librarian and I am here to help you. So if you have questions about anything I talked about, how to find keywords, which databases to look in, what to type into them, what filters to use, how to download those things, how to cite those things. We have all sorts of things I didn't even talk about right now. Ask a librarian, because I am here to help you. And this is me, if you forget who was talking. But this is my email. Email me. You know, call me up if you're on campus. Come by my office whenever we get to be in our offices again. I would love to see you. But we can figure it out together, and I'd be happy to help you. And I think Brittany's going to tell us about one other thing that's really awesome.
Yes, thank you so much, Robin, for sharing such great researching tips with us this afternoon. As she mentioned, please feel free to use the Ask a Librarian service. You can reach out to your liaison directly, or on the next slide, you'll see a few pieces of how you can get in touch with a librarian in other ways. So by phone, email, appointment, or by using the live chat feature on our website. And then we're very excited to announce the launch of the Research Help app. So if you have your phone handy or a mobile device, if you would take that out and scan the QR code or just snap a picture of it, and you'll receive instructions on how to install Forsyth Library's app to your phone. With this app, you will have access to the Ask a Librarian service, to subject and course guides, and to tutorials to help you navigate Forsyth Library resources. So please do take a moment to install the app on your phone. Thank you so much for attending Time-Saving Research Tips for the College of Education. Please visit our website for more information and resources, and follow us on social media to learn about other upcoming events and programs. Thank you and have a great day.